And welcome everyone. This is Like It's 1985. In today's Something Old, Something New review, I'll be taking a look at the Star Wars Boba Fett action figure, both the 1980s version and the current 2010 vintage collection Boba Fett. As you can see on the left, we have the older version, and of course this is the new Legacy Collection carded figure. If you're not familiar with this line, it's a recent release by Hasbro, and what they're doing is they're actually re-releasing older 1980s vintage Star Wars figures and retooling the figures, adding articulation, and adding other details, which makes them actually pretty cool figures in their own right when you compare them to the older ones. So here we have a very vintage looking replica of what the older Star Wars Empire Strikes Back action figures look like, with the silver border there, the red Empire Strikes Back, and you've got a picture of Boba Fett there. And here is the figure on card. And if you look at the back, it actually gives you a look at what the actual card back looked like back in this case it's 1980 to 1982. And here is a brief description of what the vintage collection is all about. And we have pictures of other figures in the line. Okay, so let's take a look at the older vintage figure. The stamp on this figure is actually dated 1979. But anyhow, here's a look at the vintage Boba Fett. You can see he does have a backpack, however that is not removable. Articulation is pretty standard. Swivel neck, swivel shoulder joint, no articulation at the elbow or the wrist, no waist or ab articulation, and then you have a swivel joint at the hip / leg, no knee and no ankle articulation. And here is a look at the blaster that he comes with. So let's take a look at the newer 2010 vintage collection figure. And here he is. And let's do a little side-by-side comparison here. What I noticed about looking at these two is the older one looks very cartoony, very cartoonish, as compared to the newer one. The newer one looks more realistic, which I like, which is definitely an improvement, and it goes to that thing I was talking about earlier in the review when I said that this is the vintage collection is retooling and reconfiguring these figures for a more modern look. You can see a very nice weathering on his helmet there. You can see the reds wearing away to silver. And here's another more look at the figure. He does come with a backpack or rocket pack, and it is removable, and actually it comes off too easy at times. You can see there's more weathering in the back of his helmet there. I'm going to say antenna, but it's probably wrong. This thing here is a very soft, flexible plastic and looks very fragile. But the cool part, and I'm going to just go ahead and take this off, this backpack here. And the cool part is he actually has a removable helmet. And his helmet, when you kind of squish it, it actually is very, very squishy and almost rubber-like. So it's very soft material. And here is the face of Mr. Fett. Now you can see he has a ball-jointed head. It's not quite apparent when you leave the helmet on. It just seems like he might have a swivel head, but he actually has a ball-jointed neck. He's got rotation at the arms, like that. His arms can go out like that, because there's a joint there. Swivel and a bend at the elbow, as you can see. And then there is a swivel at the part where his gauntlet is, or his thing that's on his wrist there. There is no ab articulation, but you do get waist articulation. Legs are just back and forth like that. They can't go out because there's not actually a joint to do that. But you do get a bend and a swivel at the knees, a swivel and a bending joint there, so you can see the foot can go back like that if you wanted it to. So really cool. Like I say, the really improvement they made is they made it really more realistic, less cartoony than the actual older vintage one. So that is good. Here's a look at the weapon. Right there. He does have this nice cape as well, which is really cool. I don't know why there's these two holes in there. Oh, actually, now that I think about it, what that could be is like a little blaster fire. I just realized that. First I thought, well, what's the deal with those two holes? But I guess they're like supposed to be like blaster fire. So I like this cape. Looks pretty cool. Now, one thing I almost missed on the 2010 vintage Boba Fett figure, he does have this blaster in a holster here. The blaster does come out. You got to use a little bit of force to get it out. It's soft plastic, as you can see, really bendy. Not too impressive, but you know, at least it's there. At least they include that detail, which is really cool. You can holster it in his holster, so really cool. And you can see how the backpack attaches to the rear, to the back of the figure, which has more weathering or battle damage to it right there. But you can see there's a peg and there's 3 little notches here. That's the only thing about the figure I don't like, and other people who have reviewed this very same vintage collection 2010 figure, they said the same thing. The backpack tends to fall off. But other than that, definite improvement from the older figure. If you're a fan of Boba Fett, I recommend you pick it up. These figures are not exactly cheap. I mean, they're like $7.50 roughly. So I'm only going to be picking up a few of them. And like I said before, I'm not really a Star Wars collector per se. I like Star Wars. It was part of my childhood. But I'm as an adult collector, I'm more into Transformers and Gundam. So these will probably be the only other figures I'll be collecting. I might pick up the Bosk figure, one of the newer Bosk Star Wars figures. But other than that, I really don't have too much interest in collecting them. More of these Star Wars figures, just the ones that are unique or cool, like these vintage collection series figures. So I got a question for you. Can you guys remember, if you were a kid back in the 80s, can you remember how much the original Star Wars figures cost? I want to say they were roughly $3.50 to $4 maybe. I'm kind of curious if you can comment below and let me know what the actual price was back in 1985, or roughly back when these figures were released. I'm thinking they were around $3 though. Just kind of curious to see what you guys think or remember from that time. Alrighty, well, thanks for watching. This has been a Something Old, Something New review of the Star Wars Boba Fett figure, both the vintage and the 2010 Legacy Collection figure.